And one of the most important things is that we have to make people understand that even though we're Republicans, we don't fall into this mantle where the liberals say we don't care about the environment. We care about our ecosystem. We care about our environment. The thing is, we care even more about the American citizen. That's the most important thing. You know, you guys are looking at the #1 target, obviously, on the other side. Our good friend George Soros has decided that he's going to invest about $5 million. You know, I hate to tell him, George, that's going to be a loss investment. You know, we got an opponent that his dad is so concerned he's throwing $500,000 into a super PAC. I hate to tell the dad he probably should invest it somewhere else because his son's going down. The most important thing is that on August the 14th, the reason why you all are here, it's your time to pick your team. It's your time to pick your team that's going to go into the arena to do the fight for you, to make sure that we restore constitutional conservative principles on November the 6th. Not just at the federal level, but at the local level, at the state level, so we can create a working synergy, so we can get this country back on track. Economically, we can get this country back on track with having an energy security plan. We can get this country back on track as far as its national security. And most importantly, we can make sure that these two little fellows over here have an America that they can be proud of. That's the most important thing. Each and every one of you here know how dire the situation is in our country. You know that we're $16 trillion in debt. You know that we just recently went over $1 trillion as far as 4 straight years of $1 trillion plus deficits. You know the fact that the tax policies are not going to solve this country's problems. You know, we keep hearing about raising taxes. We heard Senator Patty Murray talk about if you don't raise taxes on a certain group of individuals in this country, we're willing to take this country off a fiscal cliff. That's the ideological difference that we have in the United States of America. People that believe they can use the tax code as a weapon for their own political gain, for their own political purposes, and they don't care about economically destroying this country. That's the evil that we face on the other side. And we have to have principled, pragmatic, courageous, and convicted individuals that will stand in the arena and say it as it is. Because if we don't, we are lying to the American people. And we're confusing ourselves about who we are and what we stand for. The bottom line is this. When Republicans stand on principles, Republicans win. When Republicans water down their principles, and when Republicans try to act like a lighter version of the other side, they lose. Because no one is out liberal or liberal. This is the bottom line. This is going to be a dogfight for your country. And if you're not willing to make that stand, then don't fool around with this. This is truly whether or not we're going to be that first generation that says we left less for our children and grandchildren than was left for us. Because each and every one of us that are standing here today, and I know especially for me, we are here because we have parents that were dedicated to the fundamental values of this great nation. And in being dedicated to those fundamental values, they made sure that we had a life of success. And I don't care what the president says. This country was built on individual industrialism, entrepreneurship, ingenuity. They don't come from government, so they cannot be taken away from by Barack Obama or by government. They come from God. So you don't need to worry about looking over your shoulder and worrying how much more the federal government is going to take away from you to just waste. But we're in a race. The race is when we find ourselves in America, where there are more people economically dependent upon the federal government than more people out there producing. Because if that tip ever occurs, then it's over in this country. When you have more of a percentage that are wedded to government, then government will continue to promise more and more to people, all on the backs of those out there, such as yourself, that are working so hard to promote business, to promote growth, to hire Americans, but instead we find that the federal government would rather take your hard-earned taxpayer dollars and run advertisements for people to go on food stamps. That's the sad thing about what is occurring. That's the sad thing about what just happened up here in Century Village. When everyone in the Palm Beach Post was talking about how great this fantastic crowd was. They didn't want to tell the American people that about 300 to 350 individuals will bust into Century Village, and 1,400 people who live in Century Village, they only gave out about 400 tickets for those people to come in and see. If we continue to live in an America where the liberal media is creating this Catherine the Great type of Potemkin village, where they're not telling the truth about what's happening in this country, why didn't the president go up and down U.S. Highway 1 to look at all those closed storefronts? Why didn't we go down and talk to each and every one of you about the stresses and the strains of the tax environment and the regulatory environment that's putting on them? Why is it that the liberal media is not talking about the fact that just this past week in the House of Representatives, we passed the 7th of 12 appropriations bills. But yet we have Senator Harry Reid that says he's not going to work on any appropriations bills. We know it's been 3 years, they haven't worked on a budget. But yet what do we hear everyone talking about? Doggone Mitt Romney's tax records. I don't think anybody here is sitting at your dinner table talking about Mitt Romney's tax records.
No, not at all.
I think you're talking about what happens with my business. I think you're talking about the fact that gas prices are still 83% above where they were when the president came into office. I think you're talking about what's going to happen in my small business with the health care law. What's going to happen if insurance premiums continue to rise? What's going to happen if we continue to see, another 9 million Americans put on the poverty rolls, which has just happened in 3.5 years? That's what you're talking about. So this is my challenge to each and every one of us here in the Palm Beach GOP. And let me tell you the great thing. This is the first time I get to speak to you all, and I'm a resident of Palm Beach County. Don't allow the other side to make you chase the shiny little toy. Don't go running down the rabbit hole after the rabbit that they throw out there. Continue to talk about the things that they don't want to talk about. Talk about our economic security. Talk about our energy security. Talk about our national security. Talk about the fact that the United States of America in the past 3.5 years has a reduced global influence. We have a military that right now is about to be totally gutted at a time when the world is a more volatile place. When our best and strongest ally in the Middle East, Israel, has to be concerned about the fact that they are completely surrounded. And for the first time in 35 to 40 years, that there are terrorist attacks now coming out of the Sinai Desert. Because no one wanted to listen when some of us were talking about this thing called the Muslim Brotherhood. Everyone said, you're an alarmist. Don't worry about it. Even though they said they wouldn't run for someone for president, yet they did. And that person won. And now we don't know what's going to happen with the Camp David peace accords. We don't know what's going to happen in Lebanon. We don't know what's going to continue to happen out of Gaza Strip. But we know one simple thing, that there's a target on our best ally, Israel. And so goes Israel, so goes the United States of America. So I don't expect to see President Obama going through all the synagogues down here in South Florida like he did in 2008. Because he has not been a friend to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But when you leave today, you've got to go out and tell the story. As I tell everyone, this is your challenge. Find 5 people that don't believe as you do and get 3 to change their mind. All I'm asking for is 60%. And the University of Tennessee, that's a passing grade. That's why I'm here today. So I'm just asking you to, put yourself at University of Tennessee education standards. And get that 60%. And don't give up until you do. Because we have got to take this message everywhere. Don't be afraid to talk to your family and friends. Don't be afraid to talk to people at your businesses. Don't be afraid to talk to people that are your employees at businesses. Make it personal. Get them to understand that votes have consequences. And if we continue down this path, some of those people that you have employed right now, tell them very simple. you won't be here come 7 November. Now, maybe you want to sit at home and be economically dependent to the federal government. And yes, absolutely right. You will end up being a slave to the federal government, which is not how So as you leave here today, I want to remind you of the simple words that 56 men signed their lives to. They said that they would pledge their lives. They said that they would pledge their fortunes. They said that they would pledge their sacred honor to these great United States. It's been around for 236 years. The challenge is, will it be around for 236 more? And I say right now, here in Palm Beach County, GOP will be committed to ensure that the greatness and exceptionalism of the most unique experiment in human freedom and democracy will forever stand. God bless you all. God bless you for being here. Thank you for waiting.